What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. So today I'm bringing to you an updated meta analysis for the August 2019 format. Now, this past weekend was the conclusion of YCS Portland, and this event was absolutely crazy. Shoutouts to all of you guys that I met at the event. I had an absolute blast, and I look forward to the next event. And speaking of which, the next event that I will be at will be Pro Play Tour Orlando, taking place on September 7th and 8th. $2,000 is up for grabs in the prize pool. If you get your invite, you get invited to the $10,000 pot that's going to be in the Invitational in January, and it's going to be a great time because I'll be doing live stream commentary for the event. So links are in the description if you're interested, and I hope to see you guys there. But now let's go ahead and get right into Portland because there is so much to talk about. There is so much diversity, and I can't wait. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So YCS Portland had 801 players, and this is your top 32 breakdown. Now, going into this event, there's a lot of different decks hyped. A lot of the combo decks were getting hyped. Thunder just had this massive resurgence coming out of nowhere from the UDS at the Invitational in Indianapolis. And the thing is, a lot of people were thinking Thunder was going to be one of the best decks in the room. And looking at this, I mean, yeah, Thunder's in there, but there's so many other decks in here too. There's like 14 or 15 different decks when you break down to it. Yeah, I know you see like 10 here on this pie chart, but there's different variants of each of these different decks as well, and I think this is astounding. I mean, you've got Orcust, I think, taking up 7 of the top 32 slots, followed by Salamangreat, then you have Sky Striker, you've got Thunder variants, you've got Pendulum variants. There's like so many cool decks in here, followed by Altergeist, True Draco. There was even a Gren Maju deck, which we will cover as well. This to me is like peak Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, this is so cool when we have a diverse top 32 like this, and I really hope we see this trend continuing forward. But it doesn't mean that the format is solved by any means, because there's still so many different ways this format can go, and we're going to talk about some of the decks that did well at this event. Starting off with the deck that took first place being Sky Striker. Now, Sky Striker has continued to be one of the most dominant decks for the past year and a half now, and a lot of people are really sick of it, but congratulations to Brian Chen, because this is still really cool to see that among this insanely diverse field that Sky Striker was still able to come out on top. There was actually a lot of Sky Striker in the overall pool of players as well, and what's crazy is that when you listen to all the different deck profiles, which I happen to have a lot of them up on my channel if you guys are interested, it's interesting to hear some of the matchups that people were playing, because some people played up against like 5 or 6 Sky Strikers, and then some people played like none, and it's so cool that there was this huge diversity of decks, especially at the top tables, that you could have been playing against anything, and I think that really makes for a very good competitive environment. So congratulations to Brian for taking first place with Sky Striker. Nothing really too special in the list here. It is Sky Striker, so it's pretty cut and dry in terms of what you would expect, but here is the list for your guys' convenience. But when we get to the second place deck, this was a deck that no one going into this event would have ever imagined would take second place. Gren Maju to Aiza OTK. Yes, Yishan coming back again, finally getting his top with the deck after multiple day 2s. This deck is just crazy. I don't think anyone would have ever imagined that this deck would not only top the event, but take second place. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, this deck centralizes around a couple things. First and foremost being Gren Maju to Aiza, just essentially being able to bolster its attack to insane levels because you have cards like Pot of Desires, the brand new Gizmek Orochi, and then you also have stuff like Golden Castle, banishing cards into the, and just, you know, getting its attack power to astronomically high levels, so that way you can just one-shot your opponent with a single attack. What's neat about this build as well is that although it is a going second deck, you also have access to all the rank 8 toolboxes, being able to take advantage of stuff like the level 8 dangers. You got the super poly targets, which also happen to be level 8. Hextrude is a level 8 that comes off of the Golden Castle, so you can overlay them and go into stuff like Sanafon, which is basically like a rank 8 Abyss Dweller, if we're going to be honest. You got stuff like Hope Harbinger for spell negation. You got the Galaxy Cipher package. You've got so many interesting tools at your disposal, and not to mention super polymerization is at 3. So this is like the anti-meta deck of anti-meta decks, but everyone was rooting for this deck in the long run just because it's really cool to see a dark horse deck like this not only do well, but do exceptionally well at this level of competitive play. So congrats to you, Yishan. I mean, that was just incredible to witness. I think my favorite part of the entire event was watching the top 32 feature feature match in person and having Yishan's opponent look at everyone around as soon as he saw Golden Castle drop on the field and just scream, "What is happening?" But now moving on to some other decks, Salamangreat actually had a very good showing for this event, and a lot of people didn't have faith in Salamangreat because Gazelle and Circle are now at 1. However, what's interesting about this is that Salamangreat has a very interesting niche in this meta, because with all the combo heavy decks that people were expecting to go up against, when you've got stuff like Danger Thunder, Guard Dragon, Crusadia, and you've got the stuff like the Dragon Link decks people are trying out now that the Rocket Structure deck was out, Orcust was everywhere as you saw by the top 32 breakdown, it kind of makes sense to maybe go to a more control-oriented deck that can play a ton of hand traps. Sky Striker can already do this, but Salamangreat can do it fairly decently as well, and the nice thing about Salamangreat is that it actually has a bit more aggressive options compared to Sky Striker and can just do things differently than what Sky Striker does. So there was actually tons of Salamangreat in the overall field. I was actually piloting the deck myself, and here is the list that managed to make top 4 incorporating Dangers, because you know what, the Dangers are unconditional level 3s, and if you can turbo into Mirage Stallion, you know, it's not too bad. It was something that is in my similar line of thinking, and if you guys want to see my deck profile, I can definitely give that to you as well, but I think I'd rather give you the one that managed to actually get to top 4 instead of mine. But Salamangreat is still definitely a contender you have to look out for, because it's not like it just garnered 1 top. I mean, it got what, like 4 to 5 tops out of the top 32, so this is still a deck you definitely need to have on your radar. Another deck that I think took a lot of people by surprise was a pure Endymion list. Now, this is something you don't see too often. Typically, we see Endymion Magician. There was also an Endymion Zephyr that managed to top, but going the streamline route of a more pure Endymion build, taking advantage of cards like Magister and also the Citadel as well, this was really neat to see. I've got this deck profile on the channel too if you want to see a more in-depth look at it, but I don't think a lot of people were expecting a pure Endymion list to go this far. Definitely has its strengths when you're going up against Sky Striker and different decks like that, but very combo heavy and just has a lot of potential, as a lot of Pendulum decks do. Now, one of my favorite decks of the weekend, even though it was a take on Orcust, even though there were several Orcusts in the field, was Hani Jahari's going second Orcust list. Yes, so this deck incorporated pretty much every good going second card you could possibly imagine. You're playing stuff like Pankratops, like Mind Control, like Shaddoll Fusion, and purposely going second, breaking your opponent's board with all of the really powerful going second cards, and then you also can establish an Orcust combo to either kill your opponent or establish that control with stuff like Dingirsu and things like that, because once you've broken the board of all these insane combo decks, they typically have little to no recovery because they expended all their resources into that combo, which are typically supposed to be auto-win type combos. But Hani identified this and made it all the way to top 8, breaking boards the entire weekend, and this was such a cool deck to see. This is something that we might see moving forward, definitely depending on if the meta becomes more combo heavy or not, but I really like this take on Orcust, and it's something you guys might want to try out for yourself. And of course, I have to wrap up this meta analysis by discussing all the rogue decks that managed to make the top cut as well. So there was not only 1 but 2 Altergeist decks that managed to make the top 32, one of them being DZ, so congrats to both of them. There was a Nekroz deck that managed to make the top cut, which is like crazy to see Nekroz still being able to top in 2019. I know it's few and far between and we see it every once in a while, but this deck just manages to get 1 tool back after another on each ban list shirt, going back to 2, so that's pretty cool to see. I've got that deck profile on the channel as well. We had a Lunalight Orcust deck, which everyone loves Lunalights, even though it is still an Orcust variant. That was still pretty neat to see. I've got that deck profile on the channel too. And then there was a True Draco deck. True Draco still hanging in there as one of the biggest rogue contenders. It manages to like always sneak in a top cut slot every once in a while, but again, congratulations to him as well. One of the biggest things you guys have to keep in mind moving forward is the fact that the Megatins are going to be released this upcoming weekend at the time of recording this video, which means we're gonna have 3 brand new cards enter the metagame that are going to shake things up significantly. We have Nibiru, we have the Dark Ruler spell card, and then we have Dimension Shifter. Now the thing is, these cards are going to be so impactful, especially for a combo-oriented meta, because with cards like Nibiru and Dark Ruler being in the game, it's going to be a lot more difficult for these decks that have a break my board style gameplay to be able to effectively execute their plan, because with stuff like Nibiru being able to just wipe out their board entirely after 5 summons, or Dark Ruler preventing your opponent from being able to activate any sort of effects whatsoever, it's going to be a rough time. But the thing is, these combo decks can also use these cards against their opponents. So the thing is, it is a double-edged sword, but at the same time, when you're going into any regionals or even the Pro Play Tour in Orlando coming up, there's going to be a significant shift because of the existence of these these 3 cards. You definitely have to be mindful of them because it's going to shake things up a lot, but honestly, I really hope things do stay like this because I think this is a really cool and diverse metagame to see. Nothing set in stone. Obviously, some decks are pushing ahead more than others. You see stuff like Orcus, Salamangreat, Sky Striker, and the Thunder variants still pushing ahead of the rest of the pack, but there's still plenty of experimentation to be had. All of these decks were very different. Even though there was 7 different Orcus builds, they were all different in their own way. They all had some unique mechanic to them that made them interesting, and I think that's a really cool level of diversity we haven't seen in quite some time. But guys, that's gonna do it for the meta analysis. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.